for me, it's been really cool, Andrew, to like learn what love really is. Like that it's not always perfect. It's not going to be rainbows, and that you shouldn't give up the minute that you fight because you think, oh, well, we're not supposed to be together because we argued. I think it's been great, like to see what love really is, and that it's work, and that it takes like a commitment every day, and to be able to share that with him.
Welcome to Love Matters. I'm Jeff Cole.
And I'm Lori Krett. We're married, licensed therapists, and board-certified coaches specializing in relationship counseling and coaching.
We're also the founders of Aspen Relationship Institute. To find out more about the work we do, check us out at aspenrelationship.com.
Love Matters is a collection of insights and observations from our own relationship, our work as coaches, and from couples we meet who are living and loving in inspiring ways.
So today we are really excited to welcome Andrew Muse and Ashley LaMarre to Love Matters. Andrew and Ashley are content creators and producers of their hit series, Tiny Home Adventure. The series highlights their incredible adventures where they live full-time out of their self-built 120 square foot expedition vehicle with their 4-year-old golden retriever pup, Kicker.
There he is. Welcome, everybody. Welcome,
Hey.
guys. We're so psyched for you guys to be joining us from your truck camper.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, we're here in the MuseRoamer in Park City, Utah, kind of waiting out the COVID-19 thing and healing from a broken leg.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. So
Totally.
jumping right into you guys' relationship, Andrew, so you guys met at about 2 years ago on the dating app. Were you looking for a relationship, or were you looking for someone to hang out with, someone to play an adventure with? What was your mindset?
Yeah, I had been working really, really hard on my career with very little like social free time. I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to meet people. So I was on a dating app. I was on Tinder, and I had gone on like 4 or 5 like really terrible dates. I was at the point in my life that I was looking for a long-term partner. I wasn't on Tinder just to try to get some, as you know, most people probably use Tinder for. So yeah, I was actively looking for a partner, somebody that I could bring into the lifestyle I had built. I wasn't terribly interested in altering my lifestyle to chase somebody, but I feel like I built something really cool, and I've got this amazing dog and this opportunity to travel and experience the world, and I wanted to share that with somebody that would be fun to share it with.
And how about you, Ashley? So where was life for you at the time? What were you thinking when you jumped on Tinder? Were you thinking you'd find this long-term relationship?
So I wasn't looking for a relationship really at all. My life was kind of a mess, to be honest. So I've been living in the British Virgin Islands for the last couple of years, and I had just lost my job down there, my home. I had really just moved to Park City and was still kind of reeling from the devastation that had happened and was kind of lost. And I was just on Tinder, honestly, for fun with my roommate that was out here. We were just looking at it for fun. And then I came across Andrew, and he had a mutual friend with me from the BVI. And I was like, okay, I have to know how he knows her. So I kind of just reached out to ask, like, hey, how do you know my friend? And I thought it was such a small world. And then it ended up being great. So
Cool. So what initially drew you to each other when you found out a little bit more?
For me, it was almost immediate. Like just the way she walked up, like we had plans to hang out. Our first date, we went out to these hot springs about a half hour away, and she just seemed like really willing and down and excited to go check these out. And just her like immediate vibe clicked. And then once we got out to the hot springs, we hung out and talked for 6 or 7 hours, just kind of about life philosophy and views on life and different, life experiences that we had in the past. So it's sort of just clicked almost immediately, for me at least.
Yeah, for me as well. We met up, and I wasn't really sure. I'd never been to hot springs before. I'd never met Andrew. I was showing up to this like random house in the dark to go drive to these hot springs in the middle of nowhere. So I did not know what to expect. And we, like he said, we just clicked. We talked for hours at the hot springs to the point that we like missed dinner. Like all the restaurants in the area had closed down by then, and we ended up having to get Little Caesars pizza for our first date.
A funny side story, you know, I meet this girl. I've been on a couple dates that I was like totally uninterested in. Now I'm like, wow, this girl's amazing. There's right by the hot springs, there's a few like fairly nice restaurants. They kind of call Midway like Little Switzerland in Utah. It's like this themed little town, and I was like, oh, let's go grab dinner at a nice place. And she was kind of like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of smelly, I don't know. And I pushed a little bit, and she's like, well, is there a Little Caesars nearby? So I went from spending, you know, probably $100 on dinner or more to spending 10. I was like, all right, I can handle that. And she's like, I love Little Caesars. She was like so happy with it. So not only was she willing to show up to my house like late in the evening, having never met, to go to some hot springs, and then we, you know, hit it off as far as conversationally, and then she was a cheap date, like all the things
That's good you asked for.
Yeah, we like talked for, I think it was, 6 or 7 hours the first night that we hung out, and there was never a lapse in conversation. It was just always going, and kind of like being able to relate to each other and the things that we had gone to, like not specifically gone through in our lives, but we'd both gone through difficult things, and we could relate on that aspect. And then our second date, he took me winter camping, and we had hot dogs and wine and chocolate, and that's like some of my other favorite things. So I just can't really beat that.
Sounds like you nailed it, Andrew.
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
Had you guys done any stalking of each other, or you know, Google searching, or?
So that was kind of important to me. Funny story, the day that I had my first date with Andrew, I had actually supposed to have a different date with some other guy on Tinder down in Salt Lake City, but he wouldn't give me his last name, he wouldn't give me his social media, and I was like, this sounds like I'm going to get kidnapped. Like, I cannot meet this person. And so Andrew asked if we could have a date that night, and I was like, perfect, I'm going to cancel on this other guy and have one, because I was able, after a couple of days of messaging, to find Andrew on social media. And then actually I hadn't realized when we matched on Tinder who he was, but I realized after finding him on social media that I had watched his video about his accident 2 years prior, I think, with my mom at home, and like both my mom and I had like cried over it. Yeah. So that's why I messaged him, and I was like, wow, actually I didn't realize before, but I've seen your video and I do know who you are. But
and I didn't do a whole lot of stalking. I just kind of
went with it.
Cute girl on Tinder, seemed cool. You know,
I would have had a harder time kidnapping you. So
yeah.
Smooth kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as kicker's safe, you know, that's the biggest thing.
We're really curious about sort of the leap in the progression from meeting on Tinder and having a great couple of first dates to this decision to meld your lives together in 120 square feet. So if you could share with us a little bit about what your kind of internal processes were for coming to that decision, how you guys work together as a couple to navigate and negotiate making this happen.
For me, that was kind of my dream setting out. Like, I worked really hard to build this lifestyle, this life of being on the road. You know, Kicker's my dream dog. This is my dream vehicle. Although when we started dating, this wasn't, this was very much an idea, the truck that we built. But I had always sort of envisioned having a partner that I could adventure with, and take places and experience things with, you know, because shared experiences is so much more fulfilling. And it was sort of just fit into that like idealist dream I had of what my life would be. So I was always like actively looking to bring somebody on to travel with me full time, to bring them into my business, to bring them into like pretty much every element of my life. So for me, that's what I was hoping was going to happen. And it took some convincing on Ashley's part. She can tell her side of the story.
So yeah, for me, I had moved out here. I had gotten a dream job at a hotel that I had wanted to work for since college. This wasn't the location I wanted though, so my plan always was move out here for a year and be able to transfer somewhere warmer in that same hotel. And I met Andrew within the first week of moving out here, and we kind of had a strange start to the relationship. So I met him a week into moving out here, and my roommate situation out here was terrible. So I ended up moving in with him after a month of dating, and he was living in like a tiny above garage studio apartment. So we kind of—
It was an awesome bachelor pad. It was perfect for me.
So we kind of just started out living together in very small spaces. Like this apartment had no door on the bathroom, so we had
which
to
was
get
right
close.
next to the bed. So Ashley is totally shameless.
So we had
Pretty
to
much immediately.
Yeah, we had to get close pretty quickly, and then I think it was like shortly after we moved in together, he started asking me, would you consider quitting your job to work for me full time and travel? Like, this is my idea. I want to travel for season 3 of my show and like go on the road full time. And I honestly don't think that I can make it work with someone if they're not willing to do that with me. And at that point,
I mean, I didn't set it up as quite so much of an ultimatum, but
well,
it's
no,
sort
but he
of.
just like, he mentioned that like his ideal like relationship was being able to travel on the road. And I've done long distance before, and it wasn't something that I really wanted to do again. So for me, the logical decision was to just kind of take the leap and go with him. And it was hard to leave my career and everything, but it's worked out for the best. So
Good.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a push, and you know, she was working a job when she'd come home and she'd complain about you know, the people or how she was treated, and I was like, come on, like if you work for me, we can travel, we can do all these things, like, you
So
know.
that was a driving force. I forgot I was going to mention that. I kept saying no. I said no for months. So I wasn't going to leave my job. I'd worked really hard to get to where I was in my career. And then just some things started happening with work where I wasn't agreeing with some of the people I was working with, and they weren't looking out for my best interest, I felt like. So that's when I decided, you know what, there's no time like now. The resort closes down in April for a month, so it was the perfect time. I was like, all right, well, when we close, that's going to be the last of me working here, and I'm going to go work for my boyfriend. So that's kind of how it went.
So what percentage of time are you guys on the road? Like recording seasons versus someplace stable?
Ideally 100% of the time, but with everything that's been going on, the vehicle took literally 10 times longer than we expected. So a little kind of interesting moment was, you know, I told Ashley that I was going to build this thing. She left for work one day, and I sort of impulse bought this truck, the base vehicle, and came back. She's like, oh, okay. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be 2 months of intensely brutal work, but we'll be on the road and we'll be able to travel. And it ended up taking more than 20 months, almost 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So more than 10 times longer than what I had promised initially. And, you know, halfway through that, she quit her job and started working for me. And like, it wasn't really what I told her it was going to be.
No.
So she's been extremely patient with that. So we're still trying to get on the road. Like a few months ago, 3 months ago.
Well, so we've been in it. We've only actually lived in it full time since December, so about 6 months now.
And 3 months into it, I broke my leg snowboarding, and now we have the whole coronavirus thing. So we've been in it. We've been sleeping in it, but at the moment we've been kind of parked outside of a friend's house, who's been kind enough to let us sort of inhabit the house during the day, and we sleep here. This is sort of our space during the day, but yeah, it's our hope and dream is to actually be on the road full time here in the next week or so. We've sort of ramped everything up, tightened up as many loose ends as we can, and the whole COVID-19 thing is starting to ease up a little bit. You know, we're going to be in remote locations, not interacting with people. So I feel like our footprint doesn't really change whether we're parked in front of our friend's driveway or in the middle of the desert. Yeah. So ideally on the road 100% of the time, or 98% of the time, because stuff breaks and we need to do laundry and shower, you know.
So one of the reasons we were so excited to interview you is because of how unique your lifestyle is, and really kind of our theory that it just amplifies the highs and the lows that every couple goes through. So you have this incredible life of chasing adventures and amazing experiences together and building on strengths in that way, but also being in such a small space, working together, living together, blending so much together, can create kind of amplified challenges on that end as well. So we want to spend a little bit of time exploring both sides of that. And Jeff is going to start a little bit by asking you about some of the amazing stuff.
Yeah, and one of the things I think for me that really started my interest in talking with you guys is the adventure lifestyle. That everything you do is sort of in this realm of of what we call awe. And one of my favorite contemporary philosophers, Jason Silva, he hosts a show called Shots of Awe, and his whole idea is that getting into a situation, usually like nature, or something that really challenges you, gets you out of your head and more into your heart. And I think, you guys, is sort of the extreme of that. When we work with our clients, we try to get them to do things that are a little outside of the box. Whether it's trying a new restaurant or even like taking dance lessons. So it doesn't have to be, jumping off of cliffs or a lot of the crazy things that you guys do. But, from the outside, your lives are really full of awe. Everything that you do has some element, whether it's being out in nature or all the sports and adventures that you do. Can you talk a little bit about how you think that sense of awe that you guys are experiencing on a day-to-day basis enhances your relationship?
So first thing I would have to say is, taking dance lessons for me would probably be just as scary as some people jumping off of, some of the cliffs that we jump off of. But I'll let you start.
I think
curious.
one of my favorite things about our relationship is that he pushes me so far outside my comfort zone. Like before I met him, like I hadn't really been camping except in my own backyard. So our second date was winter camping in -5-degree temperatures. So that pushed me out of my comfort zone.
So I just threw her to the fire quick. If she was gonna, bitch and moan the whole time, we'd be like, all right, she did great.
I'd never been to the desert. That was our fourth date, was going and camping in the desert, going through slack canyons. I've never been in the slack canyon. I've never climbed things like that. So I think just one of my favorite things is how far he pushes me outside of my comfort zone and tells me you can do this, because I get so in my head and I'm afraid of heights. I'm not used to those kinds of things, and so I think him just being able to be there and encourage me, look, you can do this. Stop being such a baby about it. You've got this. And then it empowers me to feel yeah, I can do that. Okay.
And then you do it and you're like, oh, let's do it again. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's the first push is always no, I don't think I'm capable of that. And then you do it and you're like, let's go do that again.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. Is the question, are you looking for specific moments of awe that have amplified the relationship, or?
I think both. So kind of the specific moments, but also how the lifestyle of sort of chasing these adventures creates more closeness for you or helps you guys bond as a couple.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always really liked to push myself physically and mentally, and that's just sort of my thing, is that sort of progression. I know Ashley and I are on two different have two different skill sets. Mine is very much outdoor action sports adventure. That's basically what I've dedicated the majority of my life to. So she gets thrown into a lot of situations that are really, really far outside of her skill set and far outside of her comfort zone, which requires a lot of trust on her part. And I have a habit of kind of pushing people outside of their comfort zone, taking people on trips and putting them in situations where they're like, I don't think I can do this. And 98% of the time, I know 100% for sure that they can. But one of our first major, basically the furthest I've ever put somebody outside of their comfort zone and outside of their skill set, and really it was a situation that I was like, oh man, maybe this was too far, was with Ashley. The story, it's a pretty fun story. A good friend of mine who's a great climber was like, hey, let's go climb this thing in Little Cottonwood Canyon, a nearby area. And I thought it was this route called Stewart's Corner. I think that's what it's called. And it's really easy, very straightforward. I'd been on it before and I was comfortable taking Ashley up it, but I'd gotten confused, or there's a communication breakdown, and we show up to the climb and it's something I'd never been on, called Outside Corner, which is substantially more exposed, meaning it's more airy. You look down, there's nothing below you. You're very much trusting your gear. There's never a spot where you feel overly secure.
And just for reference, I'm terrified of heights. I've gotten better at it, but at that point I had only been climbing 3 times. I'd only been outside like one other time.
I think you'd been to the top of the climbing wall, like
Yeah.
the 40 or 50-foot climbing wall at our local gym twice.
On like the easy route, the route that has like the pizza holds for kids. Like that's the route I had to climb.
And previous to this, I mean, like a month before, she had gotten like 15 feet off the ground, maybe 10 feet off the ground. She's like, okay, I'm done. I'm coming down. So anyways, we go into this climb. Like, this isn't really what I thought it was. My buddy Kevin is this firefighter. He's an incredibly strong climber and kind of just a brash person. He's like, oh, you're fine. I was like, all right, whatever, Kevin, we'll follow you up this. And, you know, safety-wise, I knew we could get her through it. Like, we're both very experienced climbers. We understand how everything works. Like, I fully trust Kevin's ability. And we set off up this route. And the way we did it is Kevin climbed first and actually belayed us both together. So I was able to like sort of support Ashley through the climb. And we get through the first pitch, which is the first rope's length. So first 120 feet or so. And
you have to unclip at the end of every pitch. So like you're just kind of standing on a ledge, like not really clipped into anything.
Well, you're tied in.
Well,
you're tied in.
No, it didn't seem so safe to me.
you're tied in the entire time. But anyways, yeah, we got to this situation and we're like the last pitch, the third pitch, you kind of step off into the air. It's like this very exposed move. It's very intense. Even for me, like I don't really like it. And Ashley, like terrified, shaking, literally her hands are on the rocks and there's beads of sweat running down the rocks where her hand was. Like I've never seen anyone's hand so sweaty. And I'm in this situation like, you know, we could get her down, we could lower her, but then it becomes almost a rescue scenario, which is complex, it's time consuming. You know, the easiest thing is to just climb through it. And we get to this point and we're climbing together and Ashley's out of her mind, scared, and she gets off route. So the rope's, you know, mounted here and she's kind of climbed off to the left and she's like, I'm like, Ashley, you need to get back this way. She's like, no, I'm going this way. It's fine. I'm like, okay, hopefully you can, you know, get back underneath the rope. And finally she gets to a spot that's blank. She can't go any further. Like, you know, you're gonna have to let go and just kind of swing back underneath the rope to get back on the route. And she swings over, kicks
barn
me.
door swing.
Yeah, like rolls down the cliff face, kicks me in the head, and I'm fine. Like I'm worried about her, and my hat goes flying, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" Like she's sobbing,
hysterical,
sobbing, crying, and I'm like, now it's full blown. This is a rescue situation, and I feel terrible. Like I've never put somebody this far outside of their comfort zone. It was inappropriate. I wish I had not done it. But she starts climbing while sobbing, moving uphill. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, there's no way we're getting out of this. Like, and she keeps going and she's starting to calm down a little bit. And she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, sorry for what? Like, I should be sorry. Get to the top, you know, I like kind of help her through. And, you know, that's a very, very extreme example, the most extreme example we have. But, you know, she was able to really push through like an extremely high level of fear and self-doubt and do it in grace for the most part. And, you know, afterwards we took her out to a nice dinner, got her some sushi and tried to pamper her a little bit.
I deserved it.
But for me, I was like, man, I just ruined this relationship.
I was upset because so once I like actually stopped swinging and I opened my eyes and realized I wasn't dead, I was like, okay, so the only way to get off of this is to climb to the top, because I knew it would be like this whole process to get back down 2 pitches and I didn't want to have to go through that. So I was like, Ashley, the only way you can get through this and get off this mountain right now is to climb. So I was crying, but I was like, I can do it, and I'm going. And then I got to the top and I just felt so bad because it was his favorite hat. And I was like, I'm so sorry you lost your favorite hat.
I could have cared less about the hat.
But I think just the situations like that have made me learn that I can 100% trust Andrew. Like, he's one of the only people that I would trust with my life, like doing these kinds of things. Our friend Kevin, I trust climbing, but like Andrew's the only person I trust taking me on most of these adventures, because I know like he's got my safety and my well-being like the first thing. So
even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes.
Sometimes it doesn't, but I know it's okay. We actually went recently to LaSalle's, and it was this slot canyon that we were going down, and Andrew's like, oh, I've been down it tons of times. Like,
this is another story, maybe for another day, but continue.
Well, I'll make it quick.
Yeah.
But it was, he told us there'd be no water, and so we were like, okay, and he's like, it'll be warm. It was kind of like the summer, fall, and so we were wearing shorts and cotton t-shirts and just normal tennis shoes because we were told there's no water, and we get to the top of it, and it's a running waterfall. Like, so this slot canyon, you like climb down through and go down, and it's just running water. The water is freezing cold, and if you know who Sketchy Andy Lewis is, he's like this crazy slackliner who's known for doing all these sketchy things, and he's at the top of it starting it with his girlfriend, and they're both wearing full-on wetsuits, like all his gear, and we're just showing up in cotton t-shirts and shorts, and I was like, man, what have you gotten me to this time?
It's short enough that we could get through it without anyone dying. It was uncomfortable, but we were all fine.
It was fun. We got through it.
That's not a great example of my leadership skills.
No, but it was fun.
It was great. You made it. It's a great story.
Yeah. Well, one of the 5 elements that we talked with you guys about earlier in the work that we do is trust, and it's you brought that up, and that you guys were sort of in these situations are really being exposed to this big question: can I trust this person? I think we all struggle with that to some degree in relationships, and we protect ourselves a little bit, and it's really fascinating how you guys are thrown into situations where you really have to know that about each other, and that creates a really cool foundation, I would imagine.
Yeah, I've never been in a relationship where I trust my partner as much as I trust Ashley. Not only like in the backcountry, but just I've always had insecurities in relationships. I've been cheated on. I've had some things happen that didn't feel good, and I don't have those like worries or the really a high level of anxiety at all when it comes to our relationship.
Same.
As far as trust or that dynamic, that aspect of it.
For me, the relationship I was in before I met Andrew, like, I was cheated on, I was lied to all the time. I did not have any trust. So when I met Andrew, it was hard for me initially to trust him. I was afraid that like he was lying, but I mean, we're literally together 24/7. So I was like, at this point, I'd be pretty impressed if you were able to lie to me, because we're always together.
It would be a skill I don't possess.
Yeah. No, I trust him fully, like in every aspect. So it's pretty nice to have that for once.
Cool.
So there's one aspect of the relationship, which is sort of these extremes that we're touching on, and the bonding that happens in these amazing experiences and situations that you have. But I'm also curious about sort of the day-to-day lower intensity connection that you've built together. And in particular, how do you show appreciation for each other? How do you connect during the quiet times?
Well, it's not something I'm very good at, to be honest, as far as the relationship goes. I'm still very focused on the career stuff, and what we're doing is a privilege, and it's something that everybody wants to do. And one of my thoughts is like the only way you can guarantee being successful if you work harder than everybody else. So during the day, I'm pretty focused on like getting work done, being productive. I really try to thank Ashley and show appreciation that way. And not that we can do it right now, but one of Ashley's sort of passions is food and going out to eat and experiencing stuff like that. And I could really, I'm quite content just eating at home. Ashley's an amazing cook, and I could eat pretty basic for the most part. So to show appreciation, we go out to eat when there's, any sort of celebration, or Ashley has a restaurant on her list and we're nearby. So that's how I try to show appreciation. At the end of the day, we've instilled this policy fairly recently where, our phones go away at 10. We typically get into bed around 9:30, so phones away at 10, no questions asked. And then, we tend to like fall asleep closer to 11. So there's like an hour of where we're spending time together, usually just like trying to annoy one another, like
just
cuddle and chat and
yeah,
just be obnoxious. But it's been really nice, I think.
It's like one of the times during the day where we're not trying to think about work, like we're not trying to focus at all, because it's really easy during the day to just be like, oh, I thought of this is something we have to do, or oh, I thought of this, and just kind of like keep bringing any conversation we have back to what we have to get done for work. So it's kind of the one time where we can focus on things that aren't work and not feel unproductive about it.
That's part of it as well. We try not to talk about anything really work related, just to like wind down, spend some quality time together.
Which is something I'm working on, because for me, my mind works in that, like, I'm so used to, I go to bed at night, I lay down, and then I plan out my next day. So I tell myself, okay, tomorrow I have to get this and this and this done. And Andrew is not that way at all. Like, he likes to
I wake up in the morning like that. I wake up in the morning, I make my list, and I go and crush my list. And Ashley's like, pops up. She's like, da-da-da-da. I'm like, no. Like, I'm turning it off.
When he goes to bed, he's like, I don't want to talk about work. I don't want anything. So I've really had to get used to reminding myself not to tell him the things that go through my mind, because it stresses him out. And he used to get really frustrated because I would just blurt out everything I was thinking, because that's what I normally do to myself. And
I'd be like on the brink of sleep, like dreams, and she'd be like, and then we have to do this tomorrow. I'm like, ah, damn.
It's something
Leave
I'm
me
working
alone.
on.
I recall earlier this week we talked a little bit about the fact that you guys know your love languages, and I'm curious if that has helped you guys in being able to understand what the other is looking for or needing in order to feel appreciated or connected to.
Yeah, it's made it a lot easier to make a conscious effort. You know, you want your partner to be happy, but I think people, the love language book explains this as well, but you know, people show affection in the way that they would like to receive it. And that's not always the way that they receive it. So that's one way I try to like pick up on how to make Ashley happy, is when she's trying to make me happy, I can say, okay, like if I can do this for her, then it will, you know, benefit our relationship. So having read the love languages book, it sort of helps you characterize those things that will most benefit her overall happiness. So, you know, part of hers is quality time. That's the main one, right? It's quality time. So that's sort of where like let's put the phones away at 10, forget about work, and just like spend some time together. And, you know, it's usually, you know, we haven't been watching any movies or anything like that. It's just been like we spend time together for an hour, you know, without any distractions. And that's one way I've been trying to like actively lean into her love language. And then what's the other one? Food.
Love language, that'd be number one for sure. What was mine's? Oh, I think my other one's acts of service.
Acts of service. Yeah. So
for me, when I met Andrew, the previous relationship I was in was very like, he did not want to be touched. He didn't like any like physical touch at all, especially like in public. And so I was very shut down. Like I didn't do that at all. And that was Andrew's love language. So it was hard for me at first to like remind myself to do those things. But now I feel like I bother him when I give him like, I'm like hugging him or like touching him all the time. He's like, leave me alone. So now I need to like find a middle ground. But his other one is acts of service. And it was really hard when I had my normal job at the hotel. I would come home from work late at night, and he would have dinner cooked, or he'd have put it like in the crock pot so it was ready to eat when I got home. And I really enjoyed like both of us sharing that responsibility. But since I quit my job, it was hard for me to get used to being the one, because it helped him out, like, so he could get more work done, and I couldn't necessarily do like the editing things that he was doing. So he had asked me to like do the cooking, do the cleaning, do that kind of stuff, because he had hired someone previously, an assistant, to like help him with that kind of stuff, and work stuff as well. But when I took over and worked for him, she quit, or she just stopped working. She had another job. And so it was hard for me to justify like going from equal kind of parts in the relationship of those things to me being the one doing most of it. But then I kind of had to remind myself, especially after reading the love language book, like acts of service is his biggest love language. And so by me helping him and like taking a load off his shoulders, it wasn't necessarily like him being selfish and making me do all of these other things. It was just like I allowed him to get more work done to help us make a living by doing these things, which I do enjoy cooking. So
yeah, it
ended up working out okay. But
so
at first it caused a little bit of resentment, but then after reading the love language book and realizing that it was like a way to help him, and that is one of his love languages, I think it made it easier.
Yeah, I spend an absurd amount of time editing, so it's nice to have like just some of that stuff off of my plate, so we can
especially
continue
since
to do
I
what
can't
we're doing.
help edit at all. So
I still make dinner and help with
Yeah,
dishes
no,
and
he
do that
does.
stuff as much as I can. But definitely Ashley's taking more of that responsibility, which is really helpful
Yeah.
for our business and for the relationship in general.
I just want to highlight that that is a pretty powerful reframing. We talk a lot with our couples about story and how our feelings towards our partner are in small part driven by what happens and in very large part driven by the stories that we have about what happened. And so for Ashley, for you to take that experience initially and be like, whoa, now I'm doing all this stuff for you, to which could have continued into a place of real anger and frustration and resentment, to, hey, this is a way that I can be of service and a way that I can contribute and show love is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's something I still remind myself of. I mean, there's days that I get frustrated, but then I just have to like sit there and remind myself, like, this is the way I can help and not to let myself get upset about it. So
Yeah. So you guys clearly have an unusual lifestyle with how much you play in adventure, and from the outside, as your viewers, I'm sure that's what they see, and they don't quite understand what goes on in the background, and that there's a lot of sacrifice and work that it takes to really create that kind of opportunity. I was wondering, what are some of the things that you guys feel like you've willingly sacrificed, either individually or as a couple, in order to really live this sort of dream life?
For me, it's been like a whole lifestyle change. I moved to Park City when I was 18 years old. Park City is very much Neverland for a lot of people. People come here to ski and to drink and to party for like 2 to 5 years on the long end. And when I was 25, I decided I was going to stop drinking. Not that I ever had like a serious drinking problem, although alcoholism is like a huge part of my family history and a huge part of like some childhood pain. So I just decided I was going to quit doing that and really just focus on the things that were somehow benefited either my career, my health, or just my lifestyle. So I stopped drinking. I started focusing on optimizing myself and my time, and I've sort of just taken that. So the sacrifices I've made, it's like, it's rare that we have unproductive fun. So we have this great opportunity to live a really cool life and travel and do things and sometimes get paid to do these things. So, if we're out doing something, it's usually, based on, training, fitness, trying to keep up my overall fitness, or filming for a project, or bring a camera and we shoot and we document the experience and we share it. So, which has its pros and cons. The whole filming thing has become a passion of mine. It's become a new progression and a new way of growing and excitement. If I capture something, this beautiful moment, and these things align, and we tell this great story, that's its own payoff. But then there are times when we're in a beautiful place, having this great experience, or this potentially great experience, but I just crashed the drone, or I forgot an SD card, or the lighting sucks, or something happens that we weren't able to capture the moment, where if I wasn't doing that, we would just be enjoying the day. So it has its trade-offs. There's sometimes I wish we could just go out and have an awesome trip and an awesome adventure and not have to bring the camera and make it happen. So that's probably the biggest sacrifice is, our fun is always, 80% of the time, if not more, productive. I've been trying to like dial that back a little bit and schedule time where we're just out doing something and I don't bring the camera. But then that adds stress to it because I'm like, damn, I should have brought the camera.
Great job.
double-edged sword in a way. But I mean, other than, the sacrifices being like just deciding to make healthier lifestyle choices, I feel like we lived an incredibly privileged life and I'm really grateful for it. So the sacrifices seem minute at this point.
Yeah, and I think he's done a really good job since he broke his leg. He was kind of forced to stop working so hard and take a break, and it's really been good for him to just like spend time doing things that he hasn't had time for in a long time. So he picked up the guitar again, and I in the 2 years we've been dating, I'd seen him play guitar I think maybe twice before he broke his leg, and then since he's broken his leg, he's playing like every day. So I think it's good for him to just like focus on something that's not necessarily like making him any money or like being productive in the sense of like work, but it's productive for him because it lets him like cool down in a way that's just like kind of like clear his mind and not actually have to be focused on it.
Totally.
How about for you, Ashley?
For me, I think one of the biggest things that I had to sacrifice was my career. I loved hospitality. I didn't love necessarily the people that I had to interact with all the time, but I love the feeling of helping people, like making their vacations the best that they could be. Like when they would come back to me and say like, you're the one that helped us and you're the reason we're on this vacation and we had the best time, thank you. For me, that was huge, and I loved hearing that. I loved being surrounded and immersed with like food and beverages are a huge part of like, that would be my love language if that was a thing. And it's just because my dad, like he was passionate about it growing up. We always watched the Food Network together, and he'd cook at home every Sunday and have me help him cook, and it was just always a huge part of my life. So I think I loved being like immersed in that. It kind of made me feel closer to my dad, even though like we were separated by distance. So I do miss my career at times, especially because my passions aren't the same as Andrew's. So filming and photography and stuff aren't necessarily what I'm interested in. So at first it was definitely really hard for me to get passionate about it and driven when I started working for him in that aspect, because it wasn't something that like lit the fire underneath me. But since I've learned how to edit, I haven't learned to edit videos yet, but I've learned to edit photos now. And now that I can actually take the photo, bring it home and edit it and have it to use, I think I enjoy it a lot more, because before I would take the photo and be like, all right, well, if Andrew decides that he has time to edit this later, like he can do it. But so it wasn't really something that I got a lot of joy or use out of. But I think being able to travel and live the life that we do and go places I never would have been able to otherwise. Like last year, I got to go to Uzbekistan, which is somewhere I would never have gone, like had I tried to go on my own, but it ended up being such an incredible experience. So I think that just a sacrifice. I love travel, and I always have, and I actually used hospitality to travel and take jobs out of the country in different places. So this is just a different way to make that happen.
Was wondering, Andrew, if you could talk quickly about how you were able to make that shift. You know, it's not necessarily something that people can often do on their own. There, you know, usually there's some sort of big event that makes people sort of rethink their life. What happened for you?
Yeah, it's kind of a silly example. I'd always been very mindful of my drinking, just due to the history I kind of mentioned. And also living in Park City, people are like kind of unreliable. And I'm here to ski. That's my passion. That's what brought me here to snowboard. And I'd always give friends a hard time about, you know, we'd have plans. All right, like we're going to meet in the lift line at 8 a.m. We get first track. It's going to be great. And then I show up, and the 4 friends I had talked to are nowhere to be seen. So I go and have my day, and I, you know, see them as I'm coming down off the mountain at noon. They're like, "Oh, bro, how was it?" I'm like, "Dude, it's been there, done that. Like, it's thrashed. Good luck. Enjoy my tracks." Like, you know, kind of a dick move. And so I'd give my friends a hard time for missing out on powder days. And I went out one night when I was like 25 and drinking, and I had plans to go ski in the morning, and it had snowed like 6 inches, which isn't a big deal for out here, but growing up back east, that was like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I missed the whole day because I was hungover, I was tired, and I was like, man, I am such a hypocrite. And I was probably already trending that direction. I was feeling stagnant, I was feeling bored, you know, just like I was kind of over the Park City scene. And like the friends I had were just kind of like doing the same thing 4 or 5 nights a week. And so there were a lot of things to it, but the moment I was like, all right, I'm going to quit drinking for a year and see where that leads me. And, you know, at first it was, kind of boring and isolating. You know, all of my friends were still doing the same thing. They're still going out. And, you know, I would go to the bars here and there, and I wouldn't drink, which was kind of interesting. It's a total shift in the bar scene So that was interesting. But yeah, I just sort of eventually transitioned into this like really type A personality where I was going to work towards this dream lifestyle, which seemed really unrealistic when I set off, to do what I'm doing now full time. It seemed like it was an impossible thing, but I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go for it, and it's led me far, far beyond what I initially thought wasn't possible. You know what I mean? Like it's served me well over the course of the last 5 or 6 years now, and I drink very, very occasionally. It's one beer in celebration or after a long day, but I mean I haven't gotten drunk in a very, very long time, and I'm really particular. I enjoy ginger beer with lime and ice. Like that's like good to me. So that's it, like winding down, having a cocktail is like that's just sort of what I like, and yeah, it's just served me well. So it's I've got the positive feedback. The feedback loop has been really good for me, and I'm really sensitive to drinking. If I do drink, I can get really depressed and sad really quickly and really upset, and it just doesn't agree well with my chemistry. So it was kind of an easy transition, to be honest.
So we want to pivot for a few moments. We know through our work and through our own relationship that every couple has their pressure points, whether they are sort of topics that there's just a struggle to find real resolution for, or patterns that keep popping up that couples are struggling to try to rewire or learn how to do differently. And I'm wondering if you guys will share a little bit with us and viewers what some of your pressure points have been.
You first.
One thing for me that's been a work in progress that we've gotten much better at, I feel like both of us, is I built this lifestyle, this career, which took just so much grinding, so much risk, so much investment. And I really do feel like it's an absolute privilege to be able to travel and get paid to travel and to get paid to do some of the things that we get paid to do. But it didn't come without a ton of hard work and a ton of sacrifice. And for a while, it was hard for me because it felt like Ashley had sort of just been gifted this lifestyle without really having to pay the dues, without having to, there's no way that she would ever be able to catch up as far as the amount of work I put into it. So there were times that, I felt Ashley was like being ungrateful or wasn't working hard enough, or like these things that weren't really fair to her because there was no real way she could kind of make it feel like she was equally invested. And also at the same time, it's like this was my thing. This was the things that I was really excited about. These are my passions. This is me leaning into the things that I love to do, that I'm just wildly driven over. And I have to realize that like these aren't Ashley's passions. They're not the things that make her wake up in the morning and like have this drive. And when I was 25 or 24 or 23, I didn't have that drive. I didn't have that passion. And where I'm 31, Ashley is 25, so we're separated by some time, and I know I've matured and evolved. So for a while it was hard for me to like feel that she was contributing equally, but I've gotten a lot better at it, and I know she's made a ton of sacrifices. I know she's put a lot of effort into learning these things that don't come naturally to her and that don't really get her going in the morning. But we're two different kind of personality types, and Ashley is incredibly supportive and has been willing to put her career aside, put some of her dreams and stuff aside to help support mine. So I need to quit being such an asshole.
And I think like another thing that has been a huge like difference for us is we come from very different childhoods, and I think that it's like something that when we're arguing, it kind of gets brought up because Andrew came from like a house where he basically raised his sister. His dad left when they were kids. His mom was not reliable most of the time. So he was the one that had to like step up and become an adult really early on and like handle everything. Where I had both my parents were together. They were incredibly supportive. They still are. And so it's just very different. And I think in arguments, it's easy to get like thrown at me that like, I grew up with this lifestyle, but I think we've really worked through being able to say like, even though we come from different backgrounds, like it's not, you can't say like one person's had it easier or harder, like overall, because we still struggle with things. So I think that's something. And then because of like his childhood, we've really worked through like how he communicates, because I think in the beginning, like
I'm still not great at it.
he's still not great at it, but he's come a very long way, and I really appreciate like how much effort he's put into it, because in the beginning he would like shut down completely. He would get like really angry and then just shut down, like not want to do anything or like talk about anything. And he's gotten better at like, if he needs to take a step away and like breathe for a minute and then come back in and say like, look, let's talk about this, like let's settle this. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate the most, because it was like a really big issue in the beginning, and like he would get really hot-headed, which then I would get upset, and then we would kind of just like go at each other because both of us are really upset. So it's something that we're still working on, but definitely has been a lot of improvement, because the way we were communicating for a while was definitely not ideal whatsoever.
So we live in a 3-story townhome, and living and working together, even sometimes that feels too small. Like 2 stories of separation still doesn't feel like enough space at times. And so I'm curious about how living in such a small space together has maybe influenced how you guys have had to work through these things, or pushed you to grow in certain ways that maybe otherwise you wouldn't have had to.
I think one thing, especially being that like we work together and we're in such small quarters, is that we do argue, we do get in fights, we do get upset with each other, but it's hard because sometimes we're on a shoot and we're with clients and we had just gotten in this huge argument. We're still really upset with each other, but we have to go out and put on like a professional face for clients and act like everything's okay. So I think it's kind of taught both of us like to swallow our pride a little bit and be like, okay, well, yeah, we might still be mad at each other, but we have to like let it go, and we can talk about it and work through it later if we want to, but like we kind of just have to like swallow our pride and be like, all right, well, let's move past this because we have to, and now we have to go to work and make money and do what we need to do. I think that's one thing that I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy. I think it's easier for things to boil over that maybe otherwise wouldn't. You know, you get into a situation, you can separate yourself, go do something. But when you're both fuming in a tight space, it's really easy for things to just boil over. I think that's the best way to explain it. You know, we've tried. It's great to have Kicker because, you know, always kind of disappear, take him for a walk.
Yeah. Or just pet him.
Separate ourselves, you know.
Therapy dog.
We have, you know, the camper, and then we have the truck. And I think there's been a time where, you know, one of us will just go like sit in the truck.
Yeah.
And like try to just like cool down or go for a walk or something.
Or I think Andrew's gotten really good too when he can tell that I'm getting really upset or like stressed out about something and I need time to go cool down. He's gotten really good at just being like, okay, you need to go on a walk, like go work out, go on a walk, like work out some energy, because it really does help me. Like when he broke his leg, I was so upset. I was so upset.
She was so mad. And I was mad at myself too, so it really didn't help.
No, it didn't. But I was so mad at him because we'd been working for 2 years to go to Alaska and build this thing, and we finally were about to leave, and then he broke his leg doing some silly stuff on the mountain. And I was so mad, so I didn't talk to him for like the first day, other than asking like, do you need something? Like, but I didn't really talk to him, and I was pretty upset. And finally I just went to the gym and I worked out and got out a bunch of like aggression and pent up energy that I had. And I came home and I was like, it kind of made me realize like, as much as I'm upset at him, he's upset at himself 100 times more, and he's being that much more hard on himself about it. So I needed to give him a little bit of grace and just be supportive and ask how I could help. So I think that's important, just being able to be like, all right, look, I need to get out of here. I need to go on a walk. I need to go get some time in nature, just to be able to cool down. Because like you said, when you're in such a small space and you're mad at each other, I mean, there's not really any way of escaping it. It just kind of seems like you're suffocating sometimes.
Yeah, there's there's few things worse, I think, than laying in bed next to somebody that you're angry with, or that you both are angry. Like, that is such a shitty feeling. So,
Yeah.
we try to like never go to bed angry. We always try to like have a conversation and work things out and try to reach some sort of like common ground or resolution. Because I really can't stand that feeling. I'd rather go sleep outside or resolve it than, deal with that.
That's happened a couple times, I feel like. Not that you slept outside, but like on a couch. And like early on in the relationship when we've gotten good at like working through it.
But, yeah, I think for me, like, exercise is a huge part of it. If I'm stuck editing for 16 hours in a day, I am an angry little man. But if I go and get some workout in an hour-long workout or run or walk with kicker or something, it's a huge reset for me. And, that's sort of what I try to like push Ashley to do if she's being a pain in the ass.
It's good. It's good. I need it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's really amazing. I mean, I think it's wonderful how you guys have sort of adapted through that. One other question about sort of adaptation. You guys have a pretty big social media following, and not just in numbers, but there's a lot of interaction. And I've been really amazed, at the level of sort of disclosure that you guys have been willing to show with your following, and really kind of acting as models for a lot of people as to how they'd like to live their lives. I was wondering, how have you guys adapted your relationship, or what have you had to do because you're a public couple in some ways and are seen by a lot of other people?
I don't know if we've really had to adapt too much. I mean, social media is sort of what it is. One of the things I try to base my social media on is honesty and being relatable, and just being honest, right? Like, it's really easy to post these like glamour pictures of these travels that we've been on, and it all seems like, hyper realistic and this unattainable relationship. So I try to like pull back the veil occasionally and say, like, Ashley and I have our differences, we have our battles, but she's super supportive, and we do have a great lifestyle, and we're working, our relationships work. It's not like we're these two perfect pieces of a puzzle that just fit together and there's no there's no seam. But yeah, I think just trying to be honest, and like I think one of the negative things social media does is it puts these unrealistic expectations on everybody, and they see these relationships, and I still do it. I still see these couples on social media that just post these incredibly beautiful shots, and it looks like they're madly in love, and it's this whole situation. Like, damn, like, why isn't our relationship like that? And I don't want to do that to other people. So if that's what people are looking for, is this hyper edited lifestyle, that's not really what our social media is. I mean, at times for sure, like, we get those photos and it looks amazing, but the other part of it is we want to to inspire people to like try and live their best life and know that they're like adequate, and that their situation is just like everybody else's that they're seeing on social media. And I don't know, I'm kind of just rambling.
No, I agree. Like, I don't think there's a way. I had to stop reading negative comments like on videos that would get posted, because then I would bring that frustration, I feel like, into our conversations, and Andrew would get kind of frustrated and be like, look, like, why are you letting these people bother you and upset you so much? Like, you're putting a damper on our whole day. So I've kind of learned to just let it go and not read the negative comments and not engage people, I think, too, because there's really no point in trying to engage and talk sense into someone that just wants to be a hater and a troll.
It's crazy. We have a really amazing social media following, some really incredible supportive people, but there are a few people that are following us just in hopes to watch us fail in some way, or to throw a stick in our spokes, wrench in our gears. And it's amazing what 10,000 positive comments or whatever, and one really nasty comment, how much that can affect you. It's some sort of weird human psychology thing. But I don't know, I've kind of got to the point that I typically don't engage or even try to like change their mind. You know, sometimes there are people that are just really uninformed, and they're like, oh, look at this trustafarian and his, trust fund kid and his hot girlfriend and dream dog, da 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 da. And it's like, I could explain my situation in a way, and I try to do that through some of my posts, because like I didn't come from any sort of unfair advantage. I just like worked really hard and got lucky in some ways and whatever. So it's a balance, right? Like trying to show people the reality. When people have a problem with what we're doing, sometimes we try to explain, but typically it's just, there's no hope for trolls, and I'm just kind of like, just let them go.
Is there anything that you would want your followers to understand or know about you as a couple that maybe they don't know yet?
I mean, we've dove into a lot of it. I definitely think that Ashley sort of touched on it. Our upbringings couldn't be more polar opposite, and Ashley has certain expectations and views relationships in a certain way, and I have certain experiences with relationships that maybe aren't super healthy, and she's been really willing to like help me work through those and see certain things. And it's a constant work. It doesn't always feel like work, but it's definitely something we're always like working on to just be better partners, more supportive of one another. I don't know exactly what we could say that people don't know.
Yeah, I think just like basically what we've touched on already, like when I see people, if you post a photo of me and then people start commenting on it like, oh, your goals, you're the dream couple, like you guys are perfect. It's like, I want to respond to every single person and be like, we're not perfect. Like, but that's what makes it great, is like that we're not perfect and we're willing to like work through this together. Like I want them to know that we have how much work we have put into it, because it hasn't been just like rainbows every single day. So, and I think that's what a lot of them maybe see, unless we do like the posts where we say, I mean, things aren't perfect and we work through things, but it's easy for someone to just glance at your profile and be like, oh wow, this couple's in love and they've never fought before and all this stuff, because I feel like that's sometimes what I see on other couples' Instagrams when it's just the glamour shots. It's like, wow, they never fight. That's amazing. But I mean, that's
Right.
not the case. I think
we've been on a project with a really popular influencer couple, and their whole thing is just these crazy setup shots of them, looks like they're about to make passionate love in this unbelievable setting. And watching them work together was a lot of bickering and and then they get this photo and it's unbelievable. Like they're artists in their own way, but they're also portraying this picture that is not at all true to the reality. I mean, maybe they do have mind-blowing sex afterwards.
Yeah, I don't know.
But in person, it didn't look that enjoyable. As you see the photo, you're like, man, I want that. But watching the whole thing unfold, it's like, maybe not. So,
Okay,
so
so
you do a good job of balancing those two things.
So last thoughts, if you can take a minute or two and summarize in a few sentences, if you think about this path and this journey that you guys are on together as a couple, why does love matter to you?
I need a minute.
You need a minute? All right. I've always been like a pretty affectionate person. I've always craved affection. I've always craved love. Having a dog for me is a great outlet for that, to both give and receive love. And having that with another person is far, far more complex, but also far more rewarding. And those shared experiences and having the support of somebody. I'm pretty good at like bearing a lot of weight on my shoulders for a long time, but eventually I break down and crack, and sometimes don't feel confident or whatever. And having a supportive partner and in my life makes me like 10 times more capable and stronger, and just feels good to have someone in my life that I care about and that I know cares about me and that wants to see me succeed and that I want to see succeed. So we have an interesting lifestyle, and it's pretty awesome to be able to share it with Ashley.
And I think for me, growing up, like my parents really never fought, which actually did kind of give me some skewed views, or at least they would like bicker at each other, but I never saw them fight, which some of my close friends, their parents were always arguing. So I always kind of idolized that and was like, that's what I want in my relationship someday. And I know even growing up, like I couldn't see exactly what I wanted my career to be for the longest time, or what I wanted career-wise to obtain, but I always knew that I just wanted to like find love, find the person I wanted to spend my life with, have a family with them, and be happy. And that was kind of always my goal. And so I think for me, it's been really cool, Andrew, to like learn what love really is. Like that it's not always perfect. It's not going to be rainbows, and that you shouldn't give up the minute that you fight because you think, oh, well, we're not supposed to be together because we argued. I think it's been great, like to see what love really is, and that it's work, and then it takes like a commitment every day. And to be able to share that with him. So I think that's what it means to me, just being happy and finding the person that you want to spend it with.
Well, we really admire you guys and admire what you've been able to do and the lifestyle you've been able to create and how you've been able to do it together. So thank you. What's the best way people can find you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Andrew__Muse, or our YouTube, which is just Andrew Muse. And then Ashley.
I'm the Unexpected Adventurous on Instagram.
So Ashley is more of like her take on our situation.
I started a blog. I haven't put a lot of time into it lately just because things have been crazy, but it's also the Unexpected Adventurous. So once we're back on the road full time, I plan on doing like blog posts about our adventures, where we're going, like food recipes for cooking in small homes.
And then our series is called Tiny Home Adventure, which you can also find on YouTube or on Instagram. And Kicker has an Instagram as well, at KickerDogMuse, if you like all dog photos and Kicker doing wild things, because who doesn't like that?
Yeah.
And so what's sort of the schedule for plans? You're heading out soon, or?
That's the plan. The leg's feeling pretty good. I'm about 12 weeks out. There's starting to see some bone regrowth. I'm like 85% as far as being able to get back to the things that I was doing previously. Another like solid push on editing this week, and then the next week start working on just like tightening up some things that have broken and failed on the rig. And after that, hopefully on the road full time. I'd like to get down to the desert, like to get to Hood River, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest. Initially, the plan was to drive to the southern point of South America over the course of a year. With the whole COVID-19 thing, that seems less safe than it was before. So we're going to kind of wait things out a little bit and let things develop before heading that far south. But we'll be traveling, producing weekly content, episodes of, not only action adventure stuff, but our lifestyle, our relationship, and everything in between.
One more question. I know you guys are selling t-shirts. How can people support you if they want to?
So we have some t-shirts and photo prints on my website, www.andrewmuseproductions.com. We also run some other t-shirts through a different third party occasionally. We also have a Patreon, which is sort of a way that people can help support us, but we'll also give back in different ways. We offer, t-shirts, one-on-one conversations.
So I put together like a monthly postcard from us from wherever we're at in the world, and we send out just kind of updates that happened over the month and some photos that we've taken along our adventures in the month.
So
and then,
that's kind of a fun way to get some exclusive content, support, throw some gas in the tank, and kind of really allow us to continue to create like cool, authentic content that hopefully brings some people some joy or some insight into like what a real life influencer, I try to stay away from that, actually looks like. But we're just trying to spread some positivity and some love and some cool, entertaining content.
But I think you guys are doing a great job. Again, really admire what you've done.
Thanks, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time and for your authenticity and your honesty, and we look forward to watching you guys grow and thrive.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. It was great talking to you.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys, take care. Safe travels.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. You can find the Love Matters podcast on iTunes or learn more about our work at aspenrelationship.com.